We're still in New Year's mode. We were just talking about the parties that we were at. Interesting stuff. Here we are coming in with a bang with Storm Watch. Your first weekend will be a messy one in Southern Ontario.
It seems as though Mother Nature really wanted to let herself known for the start of 2015. It's really across the country we have active conditions on the way.
We do. We're in Storm Watch for pretty much every single province. All right, well, we'll get to those details in just a moment. But first, as you're stepping out.
Even though our temperatures for the day, I mean, it's around that seasonal mark. You have the wind chill. It's still, you need to put on all the layers.
Chilly. We don't like to complain about the cold, but we do nonetheless. All right, but we're also going to be, I don't want to say complain, but I mean, meanwhile, what's happening out on the roads right now, Krissy?
Well, if you are traveling, I'm glad you showed on the radar there. You could see that little remnants of snow moving through Kitchener. That could complicate things for the drive. Things could be changing quite a bit out on the roads as we have a messy mix of precipitation on the way. Kasia, I'll let you tell that story.
And Krissy, I mean, she's quite the connoisseur. You should have seen her on skates, Mike, the aficionado. This was her not too long ago live. I loved how you're such a good sport about it.
Yeah, you know, but I feel like it keeps coming back to haunt me.
Yeah, I keep bringing it up. I'm sorry. Bad
It's all right. It's all right. I'm glad that I just, you know, you need to buy me for all of this is one of those things the little kids have, but in an adult size. So then maybe I can work on my skills.
Mike will work on that throughout the show.
Thanks, Kasia. And while we joined Mike and you saw that dusting through Guelph, and same we're going to see the concern as you head through Kitchener this morning as everyone returns from holidays. So enjoy the clearer drive. What we do need to watch for, though, is all the snow and mixed precipitation on the way, and with more, Kasia.
Yeah, and that's going to be a Saturday story for you. But first, what's happening right now? Here we go again. The year is kicking off on a very active note for us in Southern Ontario. Actually, right across the country, Krissy, we have got watches and warnings, winter storm warnings. For us, it's going to be pretty messy, though. Yeah,
and I mean, we kicked off the new year with a major closure on the 401 through Odessa. We had about 75 to 100 vehicles involved in a pileup. In Kasia, when I was working yesterday, I mean, that squall just seemed to keep hammering them. So visibility was, I'm sure, a big factor.
Timing was awful. You know, New Year's Day, a lot of people traveling to go visit family. It was just awful, and I found out about this a little later in the game because I, too, was visiting with family. And how shocking. Last year, we saw a lot more of this kind of activity, so we've been lucky on some respect. But the snow squalls also, luckily, are going to be ramping down. So we'll get to that story coming up. But first,
of course, and I know, Kasia, you'll be touching on this, but as we head into middle of next week, much colder. Yeah. So let's sort of enjoy it.
Daytime highs closer to minus 12, just a sneak peek. Now,
thanks, Kasia. I'm glad you mentioned Kitchener there because, yes, they are seeing the remnants moving through. Now, luckily, things still lightly traveled as many of you still on holiday. We have no major delays along your GO transit, and TTC also moving along with no disruptions. Now with the weather story, Kasia. Thanks, Mike, and I'm sure he will fare a lot better than I do on some skates. But one thing that's faring really well is your drive. Still very lightly traveled along the Gardner line, but otherwise TTC operating with no disruptions. Now, Kasia, I know we have active weather on the way that could be disrupting travel in the next couple of days.
That's right, and the snow squalls, they continue to the north. Hi, good morning. Happy Friday to you. We are kicking off this weekend with a bang in terms of active weather. We are in storm watch for a messy mix that's going to be moving into Southern Ontario. We'll get to those details very shortly. I'm Kasia Padurka.
And I'm Krissy Vann in for Tom Reynolds. We'll have your traffic story coming up where, of course, traffic was a disaster yesterday because of snow squalls that we were dealing with. It actually shut down the 401 through Odessa.
But, you know, it's awful with these snow squalls. They're so very hard to predict. And this one band, it just shifted to the north from Lake Ontario, and suddenly visibility was next to nothing.
That's the thing. I mean, conditions can really change in an instant. You could be doing all the right things, but when all of a sudden you can't see the vehicle in front of you anymore, I mean, it makes a dangerous situation for everybody.
Yeah. Good news is that the snow squalls, they're winding down for today, though.
Yes, I mean, if you're traveling in the Kitchener area, even because of the remnants of a squall drifting down, we have seen some slick condition in the Milton lines, but no major disruptions to transit this morning, Kasia. Well, luckily still quite lightly traveled, Mike, because people are still on holidays, but we know one problem spot can still slow things down even on the quieter days, and check in on any transit delays. But first, I know we have a very active weather story, Kasia.
Yeah, for the weekend. TGIF and enjoy it. It's going to be a relatively settled day for a lot of us in Southern Ontario, still dealing with the snow squalls, but then in comes your system for your weekend. We'll have all those storm watch details coming up. My name is Kasha Badurka.
And I'm Krissy Vann in for Tom Reynolds, who hopefully they've all been enjoying the holidays. Things have been pretty quiet on the roads, but I know next week when Tom returns, things are going to be crazy out there.
Yeah, bumper to bumper. Yet again, not looking forward to it myself, but wow, we had problems yesterday on the roads.
Those things, that squall was just lingering over them for such a time. The visibility, I'm sure, was terrible. Plus, it was so windy, blowing snow, too.
Honestly, we cover active weather like this. We go into the snow squalls, and my biggest fear are those pile-ups like that. So, yeah, just an awful thing to cover.
Thanks, Kasha. Well, in the GTA, things are pretty good. Some areas had a light dusting. Traveling through Kitchener right now, though, I was seeing a couple of tweets. It was a little gusty as I traveled over there myself this morning, but I know we have a very active weather story, Kasha.
Yeah, to the north, places like Barrie, Orillia, Midland.
Thanks, Mike. And you know, if I had had that in my backyard growing up, I might have been a better skater. Now, coming up, we'll join Kasha with all your storm watch details, but a quick look at the drive. It was a little bit gusty over the top of the skyway, so do be mindful of that. Now, with all the storm watch details, break it down for us, Kasha.
Oh, yeah, it's all going to be a Saturday into your Sunday story. Happy Friday, and storm watch is upon us, kicking off the new year with a winter storm for a lot of us. It's going to be messy out there, especially on your Saturday. I'm Kasha Badurka.
And I'm Krissy Vann in for Tom Reynolds, who will, of course, be returning next week, as well as Emily. And things are going to be a lot busier out on the roads. I'll have a road story coming up. But the big thing has been snow squalls and the system on the way.
Yeah, and the snow squalls yesterday, I mean, they were just relentless, but they're so scary. I'm glad we haven't heard too many stories like that. When I heard this situation, I was thinking last year we had way more situations like that. So far, so good, I suppose. Snow squalls still in the forecast. I'll show you that.
Thanks for that, Kasha. I do want to mention if GO Transit is your destination this morning, we do have some longer delays on the Lakeshore West line and minor delays on both the Milton and Barrie lines. Connecting with the 401 westbound collectors, that has cleared. What is not clearing, though, is our weather story, Kasha.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be ramping up for tomorrow, especially for all of us in Southern Ontario. Watch us and warning. Snow blowers as a result of this next system moving in, and the snow squalls, they continue to the north. We'll have those details coming up. Happy Friday to you. My name is Kasha Badurka.
And I'm Krissy Vann. You know, Kasha, I feel like the new year happened and all of a sudden Mother Nature remembered it's winter really across the country.
Unfortunately, in fact, on the day of as well. Yesterday was just crazy on the roads. That's not an understatement. Krissy, what happened?
Thanks for that, Kasha. Certainly travels north of the city and in the areas you mentioned. Do be cautious out there because as we've learned, that squall activity can be very heavy at times. Now, of course, with the cold, some of us complain, but others find it a perfect time to partake in those winter activities. And that's exactly where we join Mike Arsenault.
TGIF. It doesn't even feel like a Friday because of the week that we're at. Still ringing in the new year, but bringing it in with lots of active weather. We will break down the storm watch details and what this means for you, Southern Ontario, for your Saturday into your Sunday.
Yes, and I'm Krissy Vann in for Tom Reynolds. Your traffic story looking a lot better than it did yesterday, where, of course,
I'm humoring the idea of jumping into a pool full of ice. Yeah, Yonge and Dundas Square. We're thinking about it. That's in February. We will be covering that story as well. So yesterday it felt like -10, by the way, at the height of the day when those people were doing their polar dip. Ouch. Meanwhile, to the north.
Thanks, Kasha. Yeah, I know as we head into the weekend, roads are going to be quite messy. Luckily, I mean, starting the day off, we had a bit of a dusting on some of those routes. Delays on your Lakeshore West line, your Kitchener line, and the Barrie line. Details on that coming up. But first, the storm watch story.
But first...
Thanks, Mike. And I bet a lot of our Canadian hockey stories all begin in the backyard. Now, looking at the driving conditions right now, as well along the Milton and Kitchener routes, but just minor delays that we're talking about so far. What we will be seeing, though, Kasha, over the next couple of days is the risk of the weather causing travel delays.
Storm watch coverage continues. Here we go. Weekend kicking off on a stormy note. Today, not so bad, and finally starting to see those snow squalls. They're winding down a little bit, Krissy.
Yes, and thank goodness. I was in yesterday, and of course, we had a dangerous setup, particularly along the 401 through eastern parts of the province.
Talking about whiteout conditions yet again, so you're just looking at video from yesterday's multi-vehicle pileup. All right, snow squalls, like I mentioned, well, they're really beginning to dissipate, and that's great news.
Thanks for that, Kasia. And I know I've been mentioning that the major routes for the most part clear, and we just had that dusting on and off ramps and on the shoulders. So really a lot of the grassy surfaces. Coming up, we'll keep an eye on the situation at Guelph Line as well. Take a look at your transit, but first with the Storm Watch story, Kasia.
First, we got to get past today's snow squalls, which should be winding down anytime now.